Welcome back to Grief Inspired. My name is Catherine McNulty, and here at Grief Inspired, we talk about all things grief, and we talk about how to get through grief and how to keep on living, because isn't that what we all have to figure out how to do after a deep loss, is keep on living. Today we are going to be talking about Mother's Day grief, and I want this to be a conversation. So I'm going to encourage you to comment as we go along here, share what comes up with you, and let's focus on finding a way to heal. So today I'm going to break up the conversation into two different parts. We're going to talk about the grief and loss of our own mothers. We are going to talk about grief and loss as a mother who has lost a child. So we're going to talk about both of those segments. So stay with me. I can't wait to explore this conversation with you. So let's talk about Mother's Day grief. This conversation is relevant to you because you have a mother. Whether she is still alive or passed on, you are a child of a mother. Mother's Day is typically a day full of love and celebration. It's when we nurture ourselves or our mothers. There's typically chocolates and flowers and meals and getting together with the family. And it's designed to be a celebration. But when we are the ones who have experienced a loss, whether it's a loss of our mother or a loss as a mother, the day can be full of a lot of other emotions. And those emotions can include a lot of guilt. They can include a lot of disappointment, maybe judgment, regret, and ultimately they can include pain and sadness as part of the grief process. So today we want to honor all of those emotions and all of the things that you may be feeling. And I want to let you know that feeling these mixed emotions and feeling all of these emotions, maybe all at once, is really part of the grief process. As I said, we're going to break this conversation into two parts. First, I'm going to talk about loss of our mothers. And then in the second part of this video, we are going to talk about loss as a mother for those of us who have lost children of our own much too soon. And I want to start by saying that the way to effectively heal from all of this is to first let go of some of the things of the past. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about forgiving ourselves and forgiving others, because forgiveness is a big part of the healing process. And then finally, we're going to talk about promising yourself that through this process, you are going to learn and you're going to use what you've learned in some way, big or small, to help someone else. This is the path to healing. Letting go of the past, finding forgiveness of yourself and maybe others, and then seeing what you've learned from the experience as a way to grow and putting it out there to someone else. So when we think about losing our mothers, the fear of our mothers dying as we get older, I think, becomes greater and greater. Many of us become caregivers and we take on that role. And I want to mention what a challenge that is, because we actually become the caregiver for the person who cared for us. The whole cycle of life seems to flip-flop as they get older. And I think that that's something that is really difficult and something that we have to face. And it's something that none of us are prepared for. It's not something that we go about life thinking about until we're in it, until it actually happens. And I know that's true for me. Like I said, I want this to be a conversation. Let me know if that's true for you. And I think that the funny thing about it is that, we somehow feel like we should be prepared. We beat ourselves up because we think we should be prepared. We should be able to handle this role reversal. We should be able to continue going on with all the things in our life and swoop in and take care of our mother and do it all perfectly and do it all right and not make mistakes. I want to take a moment to just say that, I think that's a normal reaction. Tell me if that's sort of what it feels like for you. But it's also a little bit unrealistic. It's unrealistic to think that we can do all of this all at once. And many of us don't ever ask for help. And we feel like if we can't juggle all of it and do all of it, then there's something wrong with us. And so I want to just level set and say, none of us are prepared for this. None of us know how to do this. The magnitude of what happens when we suddenly have to take care of our mothers, whether we take care of them for a long period of time or a short period of time, independent of what their health is, but even just being responsible for their well-being, comes with its own amount of stress. And sometimes we're not quite as gentle on ourselves, right? So when we talk about, letting go of the past and some of the things that we make ourselves wrong for, I think is part of that healing process. We get caught unaware that when we begin caring for our mother, that there are often unhealed traumas that come up for us. For me personally, it's some of the things that, I spent my entire life kind of running from or running away from or trying to resolve. And then suddenly they're thrust back in your face. Not something to judge ourselves about and say, well, this is terrible. How could you be this way? And it's not that we don't want to care for our mothers. Of course we do. Of course we do, because we love them and it's the right thing to do. And it's, a sense of obligation personally that I have. I don't know if you felt that same obligation. And so again, it's going back to all of these mixed emotions that show up. And I want to just acknowledge and honor that this is hard. It's hard for anyone during the process, and then it's hard once they're gone because there's so much that we feel unresolved. We feel like we should have done better. We should have been more patient. We should have been more kind. We should have been less stressed. We should have done all the things that we conceptually believe ourselves to be when it means being a son or daughter to our mothers. And the reality is none of us are perfect, and the scenarios that we're put in are often impossible situations, and we do the best that we can. And I'd also like to note that there really is this shift in our own personal identity, our sense of self, of who we are, as we have to transition into caring for our parents, whether we choose to do it or whether it's thrust upon us. I think that identity shift is something that is a big deal. And I know that it's something that I personally am still working on and will probably work on for years to come. But what I want to just take a minute is to, honor that and to realize that this whole process, it can be really difficult. And it's not easy for anybody, and we're not prepared. And so it can really throw us off. So can we just all agree that none of this is easy, and we all care, and we all want things to work out well, and we want everybody in our lives to be happy. We ourselves want to be happy. But again, when we're juggling all of these things all at once, there's a lot of pressure that goes with that. There's a lot of stress that we don't necessarily always take into account. And so I want to just take a moment and, remind you to give yourself a break. And then when we think about caring for our mothers, we hold ourselves to a higher standard than I think we do with anyone else. Maybe it's because we feel judged by others. Maybe it's because we judge ourselves if we don't do the right things, if we don't act in a certain way. And so we judge ourselves more harshly. And I found a quote that was so good, and I'm still allowing it to sink in. And so I want you to listen to this quote as well and tell me what you think about it. But so much of grief and healing from grief has so much to do with the way we look at things. And the quote goes that we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. And so our perspective in all of this has a lot to do with how we view what has happened, how hard we are on ourselves, and how much pain we feel. And the pain and the hurt and the guilt and the regret and maybe the disappointment, whatever it is, that the emotions that are all coming up for you around this time, they are all dictated by your thoughts and how you view the world, and your perspective and your thoughts and how you look at these things will dictate how you feel. And so it's the thoughts that we think that bring us more pain in our grief. And it's the reason why, if you have siblings and you've lost your mother, maybe you're more devastated than your siblings are, or you appear to be. Maybe it's because you look at things in a way that's different than they do. And it's not a good or a bad or a judgment. Don't go there. It's not any of that. But you see the world as you are. You see the situation with your loss and your pain and your grief as you are, and how you think about it. And so it's something that we have the opportunity to shift. It's notable to realize that, the harder we are on ourselves and the more judgment we put on ourselves, the more guilt that we feel and the more intense our pain is. So how do we begin to resolve all of these heavy, heavy feelings that we have around the loss of our mother, particularly on Mother's Day? Well, first we let go of the past. Can you give yourself a break? Can you say, I was who I was at the time. I did the best that I could in the situation that I was in, that maybe was an impossible situation, that was a challenging situation. Maybe your mom did things that weren't quite right. Can you let go of that? Can you let go of the pain and the judgment that you felt maybe by her, or the disappointment that you have in that relationship that you had with her? Can you let go of the things that you didn't do? Or maybe the things that you should have done? Can you let go of them, and can you find forgiveness? Can you forgive her? Can you forgive yourself for all of it? For any of it? Take time today and ask, where do I need forgiveness? Where do I need to forgive my mother? Where do I need to forgive myself? It's in that inquiry that we really find our healing. Lastly, can you promise to yourself that you are going to do this work? Drop me a comment below if you're going to be journaling after this video, thinking through some of these things that I've mentioned today. And can you promise yourself that no matter what, you're going to learn from this experience? And that not only will you learn from this experience, but you will find a way to use it for good in the world. Right? If this is about your loss of your mom, and maybe you have a son or a daughter, what can you share with them today or in the future as you go through this healing that will make a difference? Do you have someone else in your life who is also grieving the loss of their mother? How can you share what you've learned to help them? What can you put out in the world just in general? Or how can you spend time today in silence, honoring your mother, writing your mother a letter, even if she's not here, talking to her, resolving some of the things that you need to resolve, or sharing some of the good elements and trying to focus in on all of the good that you have, because the reality is that you would not be grieving if there wasn't a whole lot of love there. And so sometimes we hyper focus on the things that aren't going so well, rather the things that are the things that we really should hold on to, the things of love and nurturing and being a son or a daughter, and looking at your mother in a certain way, honoring your mother in her own imperfection. And maybe she was trying to do the best that she could with the tools that she had, that she was given. There's forgiveness that needs to happen there. We need to let go of the past, we need to forgive, and then we need to promise ourselves to learn. So next I want to move on and talk to all of you mothers who have lost a child and who are continuing to keep on living when your child is no longer here physically with us. If that is you, I want to leap through the screen and give you a big hug today and tell you that you are not alone in this, and that losing our children is not something that's supposed to happen. It's completely unnatural. None of us are prepared for it, whether we know it's going to happen or not. It's not the way the world is supposed to work, and it's not fair. And so I have a very strong place in my heart for all of you who are going through this. And so if you have lost a child, I want you to drop a comment below, honor their name, honor their birth and death dates, and if you want, share a little bit about who they were. And when we lose the children in our lives, there is a void. There's a void that I know you understand. And it's a void that we have to learn how to sit with, because there isn't anything that can really fill the void. We can heal the pain, but that void is always going to be there. Our grief, to a certain extent, is always going to be there. And we talked earlier about feeling guilt and regret for the way maybe we cared for our own mothers. But there is a unique kind of guilt and regret that those of us who have lost our children, whether we had any control over the situation or not, that we still feel. It comes to being a mother, the protection of our children, making sure that they are safe and cared for and loved, is really our responsibility. And when somehow that doesn't go the way we expect and our children leave this earth, it is almost impossible not to feel a sense of guilt, to not feel like somehow we have failed them, because it was our responsibility to take care of them. And I think whether we had any control over that or not, I think the normal reaction is to feel that sense of failure. And so if that's you, be in the conversation today with me. Drop a note below and let me know if you know what that feels like. And when we lose our children, the pain that we experience, that feeling of failure, is then compounded when we think into the future and we think about all of the opportunities and the things that we're going to miss, the moments that we're going to miss, the birthdays, the regular celebrations, the Christmas, the Thanksgiving, the little moments and the big moments. It compounds the pain, because it's not only a loss of the past, but it's also a loss of the future, a future that we expected, a future that we didn't realize we weren't going to have, that maybe we took a little bit for granted because we assumed that our children would outlive us and that we would be the ones to go before them. It's a unique kind of pain, and it's overwhelming. And if you are watching this video and you are a mother who has lost a child, I want you to know that you are a champion. You are a champion for continuing to live. You are a champion for continuing to move forward. You are a champion for trying to figure out how to live this life without your child or your children in it. And that is not an easy task. So I want you to congratulate yourself on every day that you have made it through without them. And when we think of the gravity of all of that, it's easy to become a victim to our grief. It's easy to focus on that void, to focus on the heaviness, and to know in our heart at hearts that we have the right and we are justified to feel the maximum intensity of that pain to feel justified in suffering. And I don't want to invalidate what any of you are going through, because I know, because I have been there and I continue to walk the walk. But what I want for each one of you, if you have lost a child, is not to sit only in the suffering, because that suffering can overwhelm. It can consume you. And it can take your life. And letting that happen and sitting in the suffering and only seeing the suffering and not being able to see anything else is not fair to you. And it's not what your child would want. Children are gifts from God. They are a joy that none of us understand until we hold them in our arms for the first time. And they bring us so much joy that when we lose them, there is so much pain. And you deserve to heal your pain, to let go of some of that heaviness that you're feeling, and to celebrate the time that you did have with them. You know, it's unique because I talk to a lot of mothers who have lost children of all different ages. And then I also speak with mothers who are struggling to conceive, who want nothing more than to know that feeling that we've had of holding our child for the first time and really knowing what a gift they are and feeling so blessed and so grateful. So those mothers are struggling in their own right. Let me know if that's you. If you're here, I want to acknowledge you, because not being able to be a mother is a unique kind of pain too. And that hurts my heart, because I remember when I wanted to be a mother and I didn't think that I ever would. And all the struggle of infertility and trying to understand why other people can be mothers. And for some reason, it wasn't working for me. And my story continues on, and I was able to have Mason and to know what it means to keep on loving a child, being fearful that they might not make it, right? Something could happen, knowing that. And then taking every day and saying, being immensely grateful that you got to have one more day. And I continue to be in gratitude at the end of every day when I get to tuck my kid in, because he's still here. But my son Jackson, there were so many nights I never got to tuck him in. I didn't get to see his birthdays. It's its own kind of pain. And so no matter what situation you are in, I think the point is we suffer together. We suffer collectively. We grieve better together. It's something that I say all of the time, that find someone to grieve with as you go on this journey, because it's important that we don't do it alone. We have to figure out how to keep on living. And you can live in pain and suffering, or you can try to live a different way. You can find ways to let go of the past guilts, the past judgments, the past anger, the past resentment, whatever is the biggest for you right now in your life. And as mothers, we can forgive ourselves. We can forgive the times when we showed up. We can forgive the times when we didn't. The things we did right as parents, the things that we did wrong as parents. There is no manual to parenting. We are all trying to figure it out as we go along. There needs to be forgiveness. Forgiveness of ourselves, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of that pain, forgiveness of what we've already done. And we need to look toward the future. So promising ourselves that we cannot bring our children back, but we can honor them. We can spend time focusing on the time that we did have with them and what they brought into our lives and why we love them so much and why we feel the magnitude of the pain that we do. And then we can give back to someone else and make a difference in someone else's world. Maybe it's sharing our story. Maybe it's just having empathy for somebody else who has lost a child. Maybe it's connecting with somebody else and sharing your story. There's so many ways, and it doesn't have to be big, but I think your son or daughter, I know for me, I want them to be proud of me. I want my son Jackson to be looking down on me from heaven and saying, "You've got this, Mom." And it's why I do what I do. And it's why I cry on video for all of you in the world to see my tears and my pain and my suffering. But it's also to see my triumph and my being a champion as I continue to keep on living and use that experience to help others, to pour into my own son who is now still with me, the one that I have, the gift that I am so grateful for. And to remember that with or without your children on this planet, you are 100% a mother. You will always be a mother. And that we all collectively are doing the best that we can. And honor that. Honor your journey through motherhood. Honor who you are. Honor who you were. And then honor who you're becoming. And let's focus on that. Let's focus on how to keep on living and how to keep on going and finding a way to let go of the suffering so that you can continue to live, because you are deserving and you are worthy of so much love and so much joy. You can do this. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. If you want to be part of the conversation, I want you to come and find us and be in the conversation with us on Facebook, Grief Inspired. There are 4 questions that I need you to answer to get in the group. The group is a very safe place. I protect people fiercely, so if you do not answer those questions, I will not let you into our group. But I want you to be there. We want to know your pain, your loss, and we want to help you figure out how to keep on living. If you need to talk to me directly, send me an email at griefinspired@gmail.com, and we will find a way to talk. We will find a way to do this together. You are not alone. I want to wish you a happy Mother's Day today. Find a way to bring a little bit of happy into your day today, no matter where you're at on your grief journey.